Welcome back everybody, my name is Nick930 and this is my final review for Treyarch's latest Call of Duty title, Black Ops 4. Of all the Call of Duty games released every year, no series of Call of Duty games is as revered as the popular Black Ops series, mainly because of its tight multiplayer design, its fun cooperative zombie survival mode, and its well-made single-player component. But this year, Treyarch opted out of making a single-player experience in lieu of a brand new competitive multiplayer mode, inspired heavily by the success of the Battle Royale style of gameplay. And despite the lack of a single-player campaign, each of Black Ops 4's 3 primary game modes are strong enough that I think the overall package is still well worth the price of admission. So to start, let's first look at the game's competitive multiplayer experience. Much like 2015's Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4's multiplayer features a heavy emphasis on specific specialist characters, each with their own unique abilities, all on top of the same classic weapon and class creation system we've come to expect from the franchise. Many of the specialists from Black Ops 3 have returned, including Prophet, Battery, Ruin, and Seraph, and they all feature similar abilities like Ruin's Gravity Slam AoE and Seraph's Insta-Kill Revolver. But not everyone from Black Ops 3 makes a return. Spectre, Outrider, and Reaper are all missing, and we instead have Torque, Crash, and Recon. I spoke briefly about specialist balancing in the beta version of Black Ops 4 and noted that Treyarch needed to work on balancing, and thankfully, this appears to have already been taken care of with the full release, with specialist abilities like Firebreak not feeling nearly as obnoxious. The range and damage of his reactor core ability has been reduced a great deal, and the recharge rate seems to have been reduced as well. After a weekend of playing this game's multiplayer and testing out all the specialists, they all feel surprisingly well balanced. There were definitely matches where I felt a certain specialist abilities were overpowered, like Prophet's obnoxious tendency to shock players, leaving them completely immobilized. But after using them myself, I found they're not nearly as effective as some of the other operators in actually acquiring multi-kills. It'll take a little while longer for teams to begin adopting strategic combinations of specialists that maximize their potential, but in the game's current state, there's still quite a bit of experimentation. I very rarely witness players using characters like Crash to overheal teammates, or Torque's barricade abilities used tactically, but I can absolutely see them being used to great effect later on, once the core population of players learns the ins and outs of the map designs. Weapon balancing is the same way. So far, the weapons all feel pretty well balanced, but I do feel as though the starting 50 caliber sniper rifle is a bit much. With a talented player, this weapon can absolutely decimate enemies with its one-shot body shot kill, and its ability to house smaller recon sights. The shotgun with its incendiary operator mod also feels like a bit much, considering it deals damage over time, and can be used as a secondary weapon. But overall, I still feel as though the weapons had some decent balance, and the combat is the most fun I've had with a Call of Duty multiplayer since Black Ops 2. Map design is also surprisingly solid. Most of the maps seem to feature a unique enough design that they don't feel repetitive, and the visual aesthetics between them all look great. I wasn't a particular fan of the Hacienda map, as it felt like there were too many narrow corridors, and the courtyard in the center was way too difficult to maneuver without getting shot from the upstairs balconies. But other than that, I really enjoyed the map design, and appreciate the return of classic maps from both Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. Outside of the solid design and a few new game modes, the multiplayer component is roughly the same as any other Call of Duty multiplayer experience, so if you feel like you've already had your fill and were expecting something different, then Black Ops 4's multiplayer might not be the place to look. However, Black Ops 4 does feature one massive standout mode that explains the odd exclusion of the single-player campaign, and that's Blackout. Blackout is Activision's answer to the sudden spike in popularity of the Battle Royale scene. Much like the insanely popular PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, H1Z1, and Fortnite, Blackout throws 100 online players onto a huge map and tasks them with being the last man standing in a sort of Hunger Games scenario. Players need to grab weapons, equipment, vehicles, and continue to relocate in order to stay within a continuously shrinking play zone while fighting off any other players they might encounter. In order to accommodate this huge experience, Treyarch created easily the biggest game world they've ever set out to build, with miles of rolling hills, towns, rivers, and even fan-favorite maps sprinkled in to help mix up the environment. There's even a few locations from the zombie mode available to explore, complete with the shambling undead that will attack nearby players and even spawn special mystery crate weapons to give you an edge. Despite its massive size and potential for issues, Blackout feels surprisingly polished and is probably one of the most interesting new features in the entire Black Ops 4 package. It delivers one of the most solid Battle Royale experiences on the market, and I'm curious to see where the game mode goes from here. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to Blackout, a lot of which I've already covered in great detail in the past, so if you're interested in learning more about that, I highly recommend checking out my comparison between Blackout and PUBG, which not only covers graphical differences, but also goes into significant gameplay differences. And finally, we get to the cooperative zombie survival mode, which this time around features 3 experiences right off the bat, with the 4th being available to owners of the $100 version of the game. The first experience, and the one advertised when the game was initially announced, is 9, a sort of Roman Colosseum complete with plenty of gladiator-style zombie killing action. The zombie mode feels like the least inventive of the 3 game modes, as it hasn't really evolved at all, aside from things like Perca-Cola machines being rebranded as powers from the gods. Fans of this game mode will likely be pleased that everything has remained the same, but if you were looking for that more simple experience from World at War or the original Black Ops, then you won't find that here. This zombie mode is just as insanely convoluted and ridiculous as any other Call of Duty zombie mode as of late, with a ton of Easter eggs, weird objectives to unlock pack-a-punch machines, and an absurd amount of various abilities to keep you alive longer. For example, you can now equip a special weapon after a lengthy cooldown like Thor's hammer, and you can bash zombies away with ease. It'll take a few rounds to get used to all the new features available in this mode, and I appreciate the inclusion of several different difficulties for players to adjust their experience. But there's unfortunately nothing really new here mechanically outside of the new locations. The other new map is a sort of take on the sinking of the Titanic, only there's also zombies for some reason. Again, same as before, you run around grabbing weapons, trying to solve cryptic puzzles to unlock a pack-a-punch machine, and you need to survive through narrow passageways while making use of strange abilities and weapons you've probably never used before. It's fun to play with friends, but it certainly doesn't deliver the same excitement that the mode initially provided back when it was still a new idea. It just feels played out at this point, and feels more tacked on out of necessity. There's also a remake of Mob of the Dead and 5 from previous Black Ops games, in case you were feeling nostalgic. While the zombie mode doesn't really appeal to me personally anymore, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. If you've enjoyed the zombies up to this point, you're likely going to love what Black Ops 4 has to offer. And having 3 to 4 maps right out of the gate is surprisingly generous, considering these games generally only launch with maybe 2 zombie maps. But I am a bit concerned about the longevity of Black Ops 4 overall, not because of the quality of the game in its current state, but more so because of the inclusion of a season pass. When most other developers have announced that they've abandoned the idea of a season pass due to its tendency to alienate large portions of the community, Activision has decided to push on with a Black Ops 4 season pass that will provide 12 additional multiplayer maps, more zombie experiences, and some exclusive characters for the Blackout mode. It seems like a poor decision that will no doubt hurt the game's overall longevity. Now, from a graphical standpoint, Black Ops 4 isn't really going to break any records. In fact, the game's multiplayer doesn't seem to match the visual quality of its predecessor Black Ops 3 from 2015. I'd say the most impressive aspect of Black Ops 4's visual design can be attributed to the game's Battle Royale mode, where Treyarch successfully proved that their game engine is plenty capable of handling not only a large map, but also an insanely large player count, without completely folding in on itself. Blackout runs beautifully on both consoles and PC, though the PS4 and Xbox One versions of the game do suffer from some frame drops in the Blackout mode. I also experienced quite a bit of crashing on the PC version of the game, though it appears Treyarch has already begun addressing the issue this week. I noticed enemy ragdolls seem to glitch out sometimes and disappear after the initial kill animation, which can feel a bit jarring. And there also seems to be a few issues with the game's zombie mode lobbies that result in game crashes, but otherwise it's a fairly stable experience. There's very little sign of network-related lag in-game, and the hit registration seems to be consistent with what you'd expect from a Call of Duty title. Overall, I'm surprisingly pleased with the state of Black Ops 4. There's a lot on offer here, from the addicting competitive multiplayer to the solid execution of the new Battle Royale mode. The Zombies mode feels pretty formulaic and doesn't interest me as much as it would have a few years ago, but it's nice to see it included either way. I'm still pretty bummed that there's no continuation of the Black Ops story in this iteration, but at the same time, we have a backlog of roughly 15 different Call of Duty campaigns to play through, and it's surprising that the feature wasn't abandoned a while ago. I'd like to see it make a return next year, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it fails to make it to the next game. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you'd like to know more about Call of Duty Black Ops 4, please feel free to leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this posted every week.